attention is something that we require to function adequately in our lives. We need attention while walking, we need attention while we talk to the other, we need attention while working, we need attention while driving, and so on. Although after some point, some of the tasks may tend to get a little mechanical, like after you have learned how to walk, you don't necessarily need to pay too much attention on how your feet, on how your legs are supposed to move. And similarly, when while you learn to drive, you need attention at the time of learning or when you are just starting out, but after a point it becomes absolutely mechanical. So some tasks would that can be included in our daily chores uh, require less attention, and some require more attention. Talking to the other, doing our work is something that requires more attention than just say some of the mechanical tasks that we just mentioned. But that depends upon if the quality of the work has become totally mechanical, that's a different thing. But if our work is something important and worth doing, it requires our renewed attention every time we approach it. And same when we are indulged in a conversation with the other, and if it is not a logistical or a regular conversation, if it holds some significance, some meaning, it would require us to pay attention. And so it seems attention is something fundamental that we require to have any sort of quality in the task that we are indulged in. The lower the amount of attention, the lesser the quality of the task that we are doing. It doesn't render it completely useless, like driving is not completely useless, but it has just become mechanical, so it requires less amount of attention. It still holds the importance, but it is not something that requires extra attention. Like after a certain point of time, the degree of attention would not increase the quality of driving. The degree of attention would not increase the quality of walking. After a point, it would just stagnate, because one has learned it, and those tasks are in themselves mechanical, not absolutely useless, but still mechanical. So the degree of attention we accord to something like working, talking, that requires us to indulge, to engage with, demands a higher degree of attention. Any task that is non-mechanical, that requires a meaningful engagement on our end, would need the equal amount of attention from our end. And so it seems that attending something is extremely important, because our quality of attention would determine the quality of the thing that we are engaged in. We could be reading a book to just finish it off, but to pay attention and closely read thoroughly, comprehending every line, every word, gives an altogether different kind of quality to that same task of reading if we were to compare it with just reading for the sake of it. Similarly, if we have put on a film to watch, just watching it while doing something may not necessarily be the same as completely attending the movie and paying attention to the dialogues, the scene, etc. Attending the movie would be a completely different quality of experience that we derive from the movie in comparison to just putting on the film and letting it complete its runtime with little to less engagement from our end. Attention requires a kind of presence from our end to increase the quality of the task that we are indulged in. But when we compare it with concentration, to concentrate on something might just be a completely different thing, because these two things, attention and concentration, happen from two different points, from two different centers. I would concentrate on something that I want to consume or that I want to get something out of. I would concentrate on my studies because I want to get good marks. I would concentrate on a project because I would be incentivized at the end of it. I would concentrate on a dish that is in front of me because it would give me the pleasure of taste. I would concentrate on a car going on the road because I think having that car would give me a certain amount of gratification and happiness. So concentration always appears to have an end in sight. There is already an established goal and outcome when we concentrate on something. While on the other hand, when we talk of attention, attention may not necessarily have an end, a goal in sight. There is nothing to be achieved at the end of the task. Attending is done for its own sake. There is no ulterior motive to attention, while when we concentrate with a motive. So it could be said that a motiveless concentration eventually is attention. One is attending something, period. One does not know where it would lead, one does not know what fruits it has to offer us, one does not know what would be the result and outcome of that attention would be. It might not result into anything, or it might result into something extraordinary. One doesn't know. There is absolute uncertainty or a hunger for a result at the end. There is no assessment or viewing the thing from a particular angle in order to derive a favorable result. Judging a thing and attending a thing are two separate things. Judging is continuous assessing, comparison, weighing the pros and cons, etc. So it has a point a center through which it is done. In attention, there is no conclusion to be had, there is no parameters or criteria from which one comes towards the thing. There is no established predetermined image of how the thing is supposed to go, of how a conversation, of how a film, of how a book would actually turn out, of what result the work would give me. It is done for its own sake, not to get something out of the experience. It could be insightful, it may not be insightful. It may be a enriching experience and it may not be so. One doesn't attend with a fixed notion in mind, with an already established hypothesis of how the thing will turn out, of how good or bad the experience of attention would be. So attention is something unique to human. No, one would not see an animal attend to anything. A predator concentrate on its prey. A male concentrates on its female counterpart. There is a goal in sight, whether it be mating or whether it would be hunger. There is a goal at the end. The predator quietly concentrates on the movement of its prey in order to fill its hunger. The fish looks out at the hook in the hope of getting something out of it. So attention is something unique to the human. A human being can attend without any predetermined result or outcome in sight. And so that brings us to the present crisis of attention. The reducing attention spans that are too frequently talked about in our current picture, in our current media. So how did we get here? How did our attention span decreased to the point where we want to grip the other within a few 2 to 3 seconds, and if we don't have them, they are already on to some next thing that is looking for their attention? How did we get to this point where our attention span decreased so much that we are unable to attend to something that is longer than a minute, something that is longer than 10 lines? How did we come to this point where anything that engages us is, on the first contact at least, perceived boring, perceived uninteresting? Because the thing in itself might not be boring or uninteresting, it's who we have become which declares it as uninteresting and boring. The shorter attention span that we have developed declares any so-called not so exciting thing as unworthy of our attention. To be human is to attend. Where did we lose our quality? Or were we always a sitting duck for this information media boom to just shoot its bullet and be its victim? If we suppose that we were individuals, we were people who had longer spans of attentions, or had that quality to attend something deeply, how come then frivolous, superficial, fluffy stuff managed to infiltrate that attention? Or was it never there in the first place? Were we just sitting ducks at the end of the barrel of this internet media boom? How did we lose our capacity to attend, to give ourselves to something deeply and be engaged meaningfully while doing so? To attend is to be human, and when we fail to do so, we just become animals who are just easily distracted by sounds, visuals, lights, flashy things around us, and we move from one flashy thing to the other, from one sound to a different kind of sound, from one visual to another. We just hop from one thing to other without having any agency, a faculty of our own that has the capacity to demand some depth in what it is indulged in. It would not be a far stretch to say that the crisis of attention is the crisis of human, the crisis of humanity period. Because if we are not attending, are we even meaningfully, deeply engaging with anything? And if we are not engaging, we are miserably declining in our humanness. Without attention, without having a deeper quality within us that can engage meaningfully, we become mechanical in our nature, we become machine like. We are just operated by some functions and triggers in our neural circuit, and those neural circuits have some deeply formed grooves according to which we act, and it is within these grooves that we restrict, limit our life. From morning till night we move from one pattern to another pattern, and we have then developed, according to our preferences, our own huge networks of patterns in which we spend our days, and anything that seeks to disturb or infiltrate these patterns we tend to neglect and avoid or not engage in. And even to break these patterns and come out, step out of these grooves, what we need is again attention, to attend to and see our own mechanical nature that we call life. How can anything that is mechanical can be termed as alive? It is machines who follow patterns, it is computers that work on codes. How are we functioning within certain codes that we have begun to unanimously follow? And in the name of newness, we often have the same pattern and groove, but just in a different form, in different appearance. It is the blade of attention that will cut through our patterns, our mechanical nature, the fire of attention would burn the grooves that we are too easily settled in. And what does that mean then? It means to be absolutely aware of how I behave from morning till night, of my routines and habits, to see how mechanical my habits and routines make me, and that I do nothing new, nothing fresh. Rarely I come upon something that is creative. Do I have within me the capacity to live a creative life? Because certainly machines in and among themselves cannot be creative. Creativity is not something visual, audible, or of the senses. It's through attention one comes upon or begins to live a life that is creative. Flowering of that attention results in a creative living. To cut through my own mess and to see through my own clutter that I have built for myself gives rise to a certain creativity which then expresses itself in our lives. And it is beyond the scope of a mind that is indoctrined in patterns, that is habitual to mechanical living. It may have certain images about what a creative life can be, but then again those are the images that comes out of a mechanical mind, and so those images are unable to grasp or comprehend what creativity really looks like. Being deeply mechanical myself, having deeply subscribed to the patterns in which I live, to imagine what is creativity is an effort that goes in vain. It's a wasteful exercise. Upon seeing this crisis of attention that I have only put myself in, how do I respond to it? Do I continue to live the same way that I am living, which is unable to grasp anything deeper and meaningful, or I see the limitation, the finiteness this lack of attention brings to my life, the kind of relationships that I have? Because certainly if I am unable to pay attention to anything, I am not paying attention to who I am, and therefore I am not paying attention to what actually my relationships are like. They are just there as something stationary with little riff and rough here and there, but they don't have that certain depth that I am devoiding myself of. They do not have love in them. They do not have a deep sense of compassion. My relationships are empty, are superficial. They lack love, they lack understanding. Because I'm unaware, because I do not attend to who I am, my relationships are just my possessions. I possess the one who I relate to. I do not relate to them, I possess them. So overall it is a petty, narrow affair that I have built for myself all around, at my workplace, in my relationship, in every area of life. There is that same rotten, meaningless, empty, shallow quality that I face everywhere. How come this life that I currently live have any scent of creativity, has any scent of love and freshness in it? And all my definitions are also then skewed. My definition of what creativity is, my definition of what love is, are skewed. When I attend to these skewed ideas of love, creativity, relationships that I have in my mind, is when I begin to inject some quality, some depth and meaning into them. As a human, it is my birthright to have this great depth in life that I devoid myself of. To be human is not this shoddy, petty affair that we see all around us. It is my right to taste the richness and abundance of life. Heights and ascension are my fundamental demands. Those are not some bookish ideals that only few achieve in life. It is my birthright. Greatness and immense freedom is what I require in my life. It is not an addition, but a necessary requirement, a need. And to not fulfill that need is to not live a whole, a complete life. When we begin to attend is when we truly ascend. And without this strive for ascension, I would always find myself in the pit of decadence, in the deep ground of destruction, a self caused destruction.